Coming up on Tourney Time, Stephen F. Austin and New Mexico State are going dancing. We talk with Adam Young, the voice of the Aggies, who breaks down NM State's chances of advancing in the tournament. Plus, 2 women's teams are in the WNIT, and 3 other men's teams are going to the CBI tournament. That's all ahead on Tourney Time. Welcome to Tourney Time. I'm Kendra. On Selection Sunday, New Mexico State found out very early who they would be playing and where, and it caught head coach Chris Jans by surprise. The New Mexico State head coach was mid-sip when the announcement came down. The Aggies are a 12 seed in the West and will be playing number 5 seed Connecticut out of the Big East in Buffalo. The game tips off Thursday at 4:50 p.m. Mountain Time on TNT. New Mexico State got to the big dance by winning the WAC tournament in Vegas. They got there by knocking off Grand Canyon in the semifinals and Abilene Christian in the championship. The Aggies punched their ticket to the NCAA tournament with a 66-52 victory. This is head coach Chris Jans' 3rd trip to the NCAAs as head coach at New Mexico State. 3 other men's teams will play in the postseason in the College Basketball Invitational. Abilene Christian plays Troy on Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Central, 5:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Stephen F. Austin has also accepted its invitation to play in the 16-team tournament. The Lumberjacks will play UNC Asheville Saturday at 1:30 p.m. Central Time. And California Baptist will play Middle Tennessee in the CBI on Saturday at 2 p.m. Central Time. First and second rounds can be viewed on Flow Sports. The games will be held at the Ocean Center in Daytona Beach, Florida. Coming up next, we sit down with the voice of New Mexico State, Adam Young, who helps us break down the Aggies matchup and the rest of the postseason games. Stay with us. Welcome back to Tourney Time with Kendra Sheehan. It's our Hoops postseason report, and we have Adam Young joining us. He's the voice of the Aggies. He did play-by-play at Vegas in our WAC tournament, so he knows everything about New Mexico State and also was a part of our postseason WAC Vegas tournament coverage. Adam, how are you doing? Are you feeling good after a busy week in Vegas?
I'm doing well, Kendra. Thanks for having me. Vegas for a week, so that's a long time in Vegas. So we're back to normal, I guess you can say, and it's a busy week here with men's basketball heading out to Buffalo. Football just started today for spring ball, so there's a few things going on here as well.
It doesn't slow down, does it?
It doesn't. We have baseball, softball this weekend, so it still feels like crossover season around here.
Well, New Mexico State, exciting, won the WAC tournament, so they get an automatic bid into the NCAA tournament. We found out on Selection Sunday they were the 12 seed, and they will face number 5 Connecticut at Buffalo. So you just mentioned there was just a send-off for them, so they hit the road. First, I want to ask you about the seeding, because we saw in this video that was posted, head coach Chris Jans almost spit out his water as he wasn't expecting the Aggies to be seated at the 12 spot. He was more expecting a 13 or 14. Do you really believe it's all that shocking for New Mexico State to have that 12 seed?
Yeah, I think a lot of people were really surprised, Kendra. During the course of the week, folks were saying if the Aggies did win, they'd likely be a 14. I think 13 was best case scenario for a while there. So everybody was surprised when they got the 12 seed. They've been a 12 seed before, so that is not, unfamiliar territory for them. But it was certainly surprising. The loss to Chicago State there in the final week and a half of the regular season, a lot of folks thought that was going to cost them at least 1 seed line, maybe 2. So pre-Chicago State, people were saying 11 or 12. And then you lose to Chicago State, and then at home to Stephen F. Austin, and you felt like going into Vegas, if we get these 2 wins, it's probably going to be a 14. So that was definitely surprising. I love Chris Jans' reaction right when it happened. And UConn, I think, is a good draw. whoever you're going to play, if you're in that 12-5 game and you're the 12 seed, it's going to be a really good program. And UConn is well coached by Danny Hurley, and they're big. They're physical. It's a Big East school. The Aggies will have their hands full coming up on Thursday.
With that UConn seed, a lot of people are saying that's a best case scenario, obviously, with the 12 seed facing UConn, because statistically the teams are very similar in terms of points average per game and points allowed per game. What do you make of this matchup?
Well, I think the Aggies, Kendra, are built better now to match up against a Power 5 school like a UConn that's really physical and big down low. They're deep. Unlike the Aggies, it's pretty balanced scoring attack for them. The Aggies have Teddy Allen, who's averaging almost 20 points per game, and UConn is more balanced. A lot of guys who contribute. But the physicality is what really jumps out at you when you watch some film on UConn. Is they're a typical Big East program where they're big. They're big at the guard position, but the Aggies are as well. And that's been a point of emphasis the last couple of years with Chris Jans, is trying to get bigger across the board. And this is his biggest team that he's had since he's been here. I don't think it's his best rebounding team or his most physical team, but it's his biggest team. So the eye test on paper, when you watch a mid-major matchup against a Power 5, it looks very similar, which is it's cool to see. I mean, Chris Jans hasn't had a team with this kind of size in his time here.
Now, how much does distance really play a factor into this? New Mexico State having to travel all the way to Buffalo, where it's obviously a much shorter distance for UConn in such a short amount of time from Vegas, and then having to fly right out to Buffalo. How much does that, if anything, play a factor?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's the only downside of this particular matchup is they do have to go to Buffalo, which is not an easy travel trip. They're hopping on an airplane here in about an hour as we tape this. They did practice earlier today here on campus. So it is a short turnaround. They came back on Sunday from Vegas and then had yesterday to kind of regroup, and then you get back on a plane. But, you don't play till Thursday, so I don't think it's a huge deal. Bouncing across all these time zones might be, somewhat of an issue, right? I mean, you go from the Mountain Time Zone to Vegas, and now you're hopping over to Buffalo. So that's an adjustment. And I don't know. They're 21-year-old kids. I guess they can handle it, right? I mean, it might be a little harder for the coaches and those kind of people, but it'll be interesting to see if that does play a factor. But at this point, Kendra, I mean, you're in the big dance. You'll go wherever they take you. So they're happy to be in Buffalo. They're happy to have this matchup and have an opportunity to pull off a big upset and win their first NCAA tournament game in quite some time.
Yeah, and this is a team that has some experience that could potentially pull off that upset. Johnny McCants, Clayton Henry, both on that 2019 team that almost upset Auburn, and then Teddy Allen, a guy who was on West Virginia's Sweet 16 team. How much does having that experience at the veteran level and guys that have been into this position help this team?
That's a good point. Teddy Allen as well. Teddy played very well in the NCAA tournament a couple of years ago at West Virginia. And Johnny McCants had a good game against Auburn. Henry saw a lot of minutes. Jabari Rice has played in an NCAA tournament game. So that's a unique situation where you have a mid-major that's been there before and has guys with that kind of experience. And it's one of those things where, you see this in Vegas as well at the conference tournament. You could have some rust to knock off early on. There's some of those jitters and that kind of stuff and nervousness early on. And the Aggies might still have that, but they have guys with tourney experience that can really help the younger guys along and make sure that they get off to a good start and they're not, behind the 8 ball out of the chute.
Now, Teddy Allen is a special player. And when I was at Vegas, the fans, New Mexico State's fans, they certainly travel in numbers. They filled up the Orleans Arena quite a bit, but they were cheering when he had stepped off the floor. Now, he didn't play superb in that championship game, but he was the MVP of the tournament. And he has that, presence. But how much have you seen him buy into this program, working with head coach Chris Jans? He's jumped around to a lot of college programs, and for him to show up for New Mexico State and show out the way he did this season, how much has that helped shape this team?
Yeah, that's been really cool to see. I mean, he's completely bought in, both offensively and defensively. He's a great teammate. If you read all this stuff about him coming in, you wouldn't understand who he is. And he's come a long way. He's been pretty consistent this year. He's been in some foul trouble the last couple of games, but overall, he's been really consistent scoring the basketball this year. He rebounds at a really high level this year. He's been defending just fine. And if there's one person that you want to single out and say, if this guy has a really good game, the Aggies have a great shot, it's Teddy Allen. I mean, he has the ability to go out there and score 30, 32 against anybody, and he has the experience against Power 5 competition. So right now, New Mexico State fans know a lot about Teddy Allen, and there's a lot of folks around the country that know his story and know about him. But if he has a really good couple of weeks here in March Madness, that Teddy Allen story is going to kind of take things over. And I'm excited to see him, excited to see the guys. And, it's not always a star that really shines in March. It could be a Mario McKinney or a Will McNair that makes a big play down the stretch that, that really helps propel the Aggies to an upset win. So we'll see who steps up. They have a lot of pieces. That was on full display in Vegas. Teddy didn't play much in the championship game, and they played just fine. So I think they have the depth to make some noise here early on.
Well, one of those guys that stepped up when Teddy Allen didn't have that great game was Clayton Henry. He had the team high in that championship game. And when you look at his story, he's a 4-year guy with the program, but since 2019, 2020, he's had 4 separate injuries, and he's a guy who had every reason to quit and just kept going. That's a guy whose story is just so powerful. Hopefully we're going to talk to him in the coming weeks, but how much has he helped this team in little ways that, don't necessarily always show up on the stat sheet?
You root for a guy like him, Kendra, because like you mentioned, he's dealt with 4 different injuries. He could have quit a long time ago. He chose to come back like the others, and then he comes back and he gets hurt again. And, got to the point where I was telling somebody, like, how much adversity can this guy take in? And each time he did it, he rehabbed, he got better, and he found a way. And to watch him have success in the conference tournament and now get the chance to go back to the NCAAs. That's why he came back. That's why Johnny McCants came back, and Donnie Tillman, and this core group of seniors that took advantage of that extra COVID waiver year. So he's a cool story. And like you said, too, I think, in March Madness, a lot more people might know about his story if he has success. And same with Teddy Allen. And everybody's got a story. And hopefully they have success and they can tell that story to the rest of the country.
Lastly, before we switch over to the women, Johnny McCants, of course, another guy with an incredible story, but he's a guy who has a reputation for playing big in big time games. And he's the hometown guy. He's been with the program for a long time. He came back. He was obviously very emotional in that championship game. There were pictures of him, in tears holding the trophy. He's a guy who I can see really, leading this team, especially in the NCAA tournament. But how much have you seen him grow and continue to grow since you first started with the program?
Yeah, he's turned into a leader. He's grown a lot. He's matured a lot. I think maybe having the baby, open some things up for him as well, as far as, then you realize, okay, you're not just supporting yourself, you're also supporting a family. And he's been really good the last month or so. He's another guy, just like Henry, who's battled some injuries this year and battled some injuries his entire career. But each time he finds a way to bounce back. He's resilient. And I feel like right now, the last month or so, he's probably playing his best basketball he has collegiately. And you're right, too. I mean, he's played really well in big games. I mean, he's played well in the NCAA tournament before. I think back to when the Aggies played Kansas a couple of years ago, and he was good. He's a big time player. He really rises up to the moment, and hopefully that'll be the case again this week, because he's the glue guy. I mean, he's a big part of what they do offensively and defensively.
That game will be Thursday, 4:50 Mountain Time. You can watch that on TNT. That'll be Mexico State taking on UConn. For the women, we have Stephen F. Austin, who won our WAC tournament, earning automatic bid, and they will take on North Carolina on Saturday in Arizona. SFA claiming the 12 seed, UNC the 5 seed. Mark Kellogg's group is going dancing back-to-back years. What do you make of this matchup?
Well, like we were talking about with the Aggie men, Stephen F. Austin's big and physical, and I think they're built to match up with the Power 5 school, and they almost beat Georgia Tech a year ago. Really talented team. They force a lot of turnovers, and it's a balanced team as well. Vischer kind of leads the way offensively as far as scoring, but Nugent had a really good tournament. The point guard Mitchell is an outstanding player, and what they did last year in the NCAA tournament, almost pulling off that upset against Georgia Tech, I think it gives them a lot of confidence going into this particular 12-5 matchup. So We'll see if they can rise up to the challenge. They had a remarkable conference season, one of the best that we've seen in recent memory. They lost one conference game, and that was in their regular season finale. So we'll see if they can finish off what they started, pull off an upset, which would be great for the WAC. But just like the men's side, I think this 12-5 matchup is a very winnable game for SFA.
Now the Lady Jacks went, 18-1, I believe, on the season. But they weren't playing spectacular down the final stretch, obviously losing that last game. But then they come into the WAC tournament. They're very dominant in both the games that they play. And how much does confidence and getting that momentum back play a role into, upsetting this 5 seed?
Well, it was interesting because about a week ago, Kendra, we were talking about how New Mexico State kind of sputtered into the conference tournament, right? They had lost 2 of their final 3, and Stephen F. Austin on the men's side was playing so well, and it just comes down to one game. Stephen F. Austin's men losing the quarterfinals in their first game, and then on the women's side, Stephen F. Austin regrouped. They found that gear again and played very well in their 2 games in Vegas. So, I think we make a lot about how teams finish in the regular season, but then you have that week off and you get to postseason play and things can change. And, both those top schools in the respective men's and women's side kind of got back on track, those couple of days in Vegas. And now they'll try to carry that over into the NCAA tournament. And that's a shorter turnaround than what it was going from the end of the regular season into Vegas. So, hopefully that shorter turnaround will help them, kind of carry over what they did in Vegas.
Stephanie Vischer obviously has been a huge component to that team, first team all WAC this season. What have you seen from her during the tournament? She's actually in our top play candidate this week because of some of her incredible baskets that she had throughout the tournament. But how is she a player that can take this team to the next level as well?
Well, like I said earlier, I mean, it's a balanced scoring attack for SFA, but I feel like she's the most valuable piece because she does so many things well. She's a big guard. She rebounds well. She can score 3 different levels. She defends at a really high level, and she has a lot of experience. So in a lot of ways, I think she's kind of the extension of the head coach, Mark Kellogg, on the floor, and she knows exactly what he wants. And, where they're really good, Kendra, is they're big, they're long, they have good length, and they know how to force turnovers. And if they can kind of turn up the pressure against North Carolina and put North Carolina in some tough situations, that would bode well for them. But, I mean, they're extremely talented defensively, and we saw that on full display this year in conference play. Now, can they do that against North Carolina? That's the big question coming into this week.
We'll also have 3 men's teams that will be playing in the CBI: Abilene Christian, Stephen F. Austin, California Baptist. What kind of opportunity does this postseason play, especially maybe for a team like Abilene Christian that can have guys like Ariane Simmons and Makai Morris all play together another time, and then other teams get a chance to get some postseason experience as well?
Yeah, that's really cool to see. And Abilene Christian, of course, had that Cinderella magical run in the conference tournament, just couldn't finish it off there in the finals, but they're playing really well. And they played well down the stretch in the regular season. So I saw some interviews with Brett Tanner, their head coach, yesterday, and they're really excited. They were supposed to go to the Bahamas this year, and they couldn't because of COVID. So now they get to go to Daytona Beach, and that's cool. They still get a good trip, during the course of the season. And then, I look at a California Baptist, Kendra, and they're pretty young. Like Taryn Armstrong's only a freshman. Trey Armstrong's only a sophomore. Nottage is only a sophomore. So more games for their youngsters into postseason play should bode well. So, it's great to see these schools playing in the postseason. It looks great for the WAC. The more schools that are in the postseason, the better it looks for the league. And we saw in Vegas, and I told a lot of people this during the course of the tournament, that was the best tournament that I've been a part of. The quarterfinals had a championship game feel to it. Even the first day games on Tuesday, when it's Tuesday and the finals isn't until Saturday, it just felt like high level basketball. So there's a lot of really good programs right now in the conference, both in the men's side and the women's side. And we'll see if some of these teams can make long tournament runs, whether it be the NCAAs or the CBI.
On the women's side, we'll have 2 teams in the WNIT, California Baptist and Grand Canyon. GCU made it all the way to the championships. California Baptist, another team that is our defending WAC champions from last season. What do you make of both of these teams and their opportunity to make a run in the postseason as well?
Well, Grand Canyon has an interesting matchup. They're going to play UNM, so I think Aggie fans might actually be rooting for Grand Canyon this time around. That's my guess, because they are playing the Lobos there in Albuquerque. They had a really strong year. Molly Miller did a great job with that program. They were fun to watch in Vegas. And then California Baptist, they made a pretty deep WNIT run a year ago. So we'll see if Vaughnie Aleda and Brittany Thomas and Harper and that crew can bounce back from a tough loss in the WAC semis and get back on track. So just like the men's side, a lot of quality programs. And I know as far as the Grand Canyon UNM matchup, that atmosphere in Albuquerque is fantastic. They're going to play in front of 6,000 fans. So their season gets to continue. They get to play in a really good atmosphere and kind of see where they stack up against a quality program out of the Mountain West.
Well, thank you so much, Adam Young, for providing us such great insight. He's the voice of the Aggies. Play-by-play was at our WAC Vegas tournament. Thank you so much for taking some time and get some rest, as like you mentioned, the season is not over and we are continuing to just steamroll ahead. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thanks, Kendra. Take care.
All right. We'll be back in just a bit.
Number 32, Kyle Hornsby.
Inside the 30. Touchdown. Michaela Burgess. An incredible finish by Hall.
The NCAA and its member schools offer nearly 500,000 college athletes a path to go pro in something other than sports. Learn more at ncaa.org.
Welcome back to Tourney Time with me, Kendra Sheehan. On the women's side, Stephen F. Austin is headed back to the big dance. Last year, Mark Kellogg's team went to the NCAAs as champions of the Southland Conference. SFA earns the 12 seed in the Greensboro region and will face the number 5 seed, the University of North Carolina. That game will be in Tucson, Arizona on Saturday at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. You can watch on ESPN News. The Lady Jacks knocked off Grand Canyon in the championship by a score of 74-57. After the game, Coach Kellogg was grateful for his team, especially the upperclassmen.
Fantastic season for this group, for the seniors. We have 5 of those. Just thrilled that they get the opportunity to go dancing again.
We have 2 more WAC teams playing women's basketball in the postseason. Grand Canyon will make its first WNIT appearance. The Lopes are in Albuquerque to take on New Mexico Wednesday at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. You can watch on the Mountain West Network. California Baptist has also been selected to the 64-team tournament. The Lancers will play the University of San Diego at home 6 p.m. Pacific Time on Thursday on ESPN+. Best of luck to all our teams competing in the postseason. We'll see you right back here next week for another episode of Tourney Time with Kendra.